Welcome everyone to our conversation series. No special topic today. It's open discussion. So anything you want to comment on. I know Gregory Edwards, was it you that sent me some questions about blowing out reds and flowers and sunsets and things like that?
Yep.
So maybe that's something for Jeff.
I can answer that question. You're shooting with Canon?
Sony.
Sony, okay.
Manual, no in-camera effects.
One of the problems is that the tricolor separation filters that are over the stencils, the photo sites, there's great variation in how narrow the bands are. Different cameras, sensors, even different sensors within the same brand of camera will have different effects. And one of the problems that the cameras have is that they have a need for an IR cutoff filter because sensors are particularly sensitive to infrared. And so if the tricolor separation, the red separation filter is too wide, there is a tendency, if light is warm, like at sunset or red coming off of flowers, there's a tendency to flood the sensors and overexpose and blow out detail, which is what I suspect you're finding. Is that correct?
That is part of the problem. The other is if I decrease the amount of light coming in, shorter exposure, I lose a lot of stuff in greens and blues.
Yeah, so what you need to do is to cut down on the amount of red coming through, and that means to shoot with a cooling filter.
Okay.
So if you put a cooling filter over the lens, and if you look at the different Rattons, something that's a third or a half stop cooling, you can always correct the white balance after the fact if the shot itself is too cool, but you're cutting down the amount of red light hitting the sensor by putting the cooling filter on.
Right. Do you remember the number of those?
No, just here, I'll do a Google search.
Yeah, I was just looking it up.
Ask a question.
Yes.
I'm using a Nikon and I set the color on vivid instead of standard or portrait or landscape. Is that vivid considered a in-camera effects?
Are you shooting
Yes, 'cause
JPEG or RAW?
Yeah.
Yes.
Are you
It'll
shooting
affect your JPEGs.
or RAW?
I'm both.
Well, it has an in-camera effect on the JPEG, but the sensor is capturing a RAW, whether you shoot JPEG or RAW, but it's anything that you set in the camera will affect the JPEG, but it won't really necessarily affect the RAW. There are a couple of, depending upon the camera manufacturer, there are a couple of areas where you can have a direct effect on the RAW file, but like long sensor noise reduction, there's some other things that, but everything, when you shoot RAW, it's RAW.
Yeah.
So don't shoot JPEG. Real men shoot RAW.
Jeff.
Right, Melissa?
Hey, Jeff, I'd like to, you got me puzzled on that one, because that's how I always thought it was with Nikons. And yet recently I've been reading on the Nikonians, blog, that it actually does have an effect on the RAWs, which they say, in post you can always undo or override but anyways, so I'm not sure what to believe, and I haven't dug into the manual, not that the manual is usually real clear on it, but
I would imagine that would be, if you're using Nikon's software, it may read the metadata and say, oh, you use this setting, so it's going to apply. But if you did it in Camera Raw or what is that other one?
And I'm not, I'm not making a point one way or the other because I really don't know, but I
Yeah.
just keep reading conflicting information, and I sure wish there was a definitive source to really get the answer. And I may just do what you do, John, and that is run my own tests and figure it out.
Well, setting your ISO will have an impact on the raw file because
Mhm.
the analog to digital processor does an amplification, and that's what it is. It's just an amplification of the recorded or captured sensor data.
Yeah, but this is more the prior question, the presets of neutral,
Vivid,
you-
normal,
landscape,
faithful.
or
Yeah.
portrait, or
None of that stuff will impact a non-Nikon RAW processor.
well, that's what I always thought. And I'm just reading a bunch
And
of
you got to be
so-called
careful
guys.
about reading shit on the internet, Daniel, because
I
there are a
know.
lot of people that think they know or want to tell other people that they know what the fuck they're talking about. And
Yeah.
odds are they're blowing it out their ass.
Well, I'm going to run my own test just for the heck of it and see if I can notice any difference. Because, like I say, I always thought the same thing you were saying, and then lately I've read a ton of stuff of people swearing otherwise. So I'm not sure. I'm going to run my own tests, and I'll share with you what I find.
Good. Well, let us know, because anytime we can put some wackadoo asshole conspiracy theory to bed, it's useful.
Yes.
Facts are facts. There are no
Yes.
alternative facts in this group.
That's right.
Here, here.
I see Jack just joined in.
Did I deflect the conversation?
No, it's an open discussion. What do you want to
No,
talk about?
I was looking at,
Yeah.
and I hope that's Jack sitting in the passenger seat. Otherwise, he's driving an English car. There's Reggie. Hi, Reggie.
It's a quiet group today.
I
We
haven't
solved all the
seen,
world's problems.
I haven't
Yeah,
seen
Robert.
Michael Nuller lately.
Uh,
Mic out? I don't even know. No, my mic should be on. You guys hear me?
yes,
Kind of.
you're breaking up a little bit. Talked to Nuller last week. He's missed the Thursdays because one of my emails mentioned Monday in it by mistake. But this one had Thursday in it, so he should be here.
All right.
Anyway, we can talk about depth of field till he gets here.
Sure. Everyone's favorite.
I've got a question I'd like to pose to
Yeah, please.
everyone about tracking. I'm having one hell of a time maintaining focus on birds that are flying through the air, or aircraft, or it just doesn't follow at all. So, I shoot my Canon, and on servo it seems to jump around a little bit. I don't know if anyone has any handy.
Which Canon?
I have the 5DSR, and I got
Okay.
a 6D, and et cetera, et cetera. I've got a bunch
Because
of
it's much improved on their R series cameras.
Yeah, I know.
Well, I tell you, for aircraft, what I did is when I was shooting Canon, I tried all kinds of the different, focus points and all that other type stuff. This, all 61 focus points and this focus points and that focus points. And I ended up going back to just center point. And that was that worked the best for me. Just center point autofocus. And
What mode?
In what mode?
Servo?
Servo, yeah.
Servo continuous focus.
Yeah, servo continuous focus. And
There's-
that's what worked best for me.
There's some set points in the menu on tracking.
Yeah.
and some are pretty, to my mind, revolutionary and circuitous. So
Mhm.
Yeah, I had
uh,
actually, I called Canon CPS once and posed it to them. And we did a deep dive into the menu system. You can change the speed of the autofocus, you know, of an object going from right to left to right, to how fast it goes this way, that way. There's like it's endless. It's endless. And I went through all the settings that they recommended to me and completely changed it. And it was like it was really cool for a little bit, but it didn't work any better. And so I went back to center point autofocus, and it was that's what worked best.
well, I use that mostly in servo for tracking, but
Yeah.
sometimes if I don't get it centered up on something that's that I'm tracking, it jumps in and out.
Yeah,
There's release when it gives you a sensitivity for when it releases
mhm.
a track on an object, or staying with that object. In other words,
Yeah.
when it releases a lock and goes to another subject, and then you have a couple screens for sensitivity in that respect.
Yeah, I
So
just put in a link to Brian Worley's site, P4 Pictures. He's done a bunch of articles on different focusing methods for Canon cameras. So you might find something in there that'll help.
thanks, John.
Kevin Dolan here. I shoot motorsports, dirt bike racing, and I tend to use would be the 5-point center point plus the extenders up, down, left,
Mhm.
right. Gives me a little more leeway. But as the tracking features, I kind of go. I try different styles. The ones that'll hold the current focus plane. If you jump off, if you don't target your subject, if you fall off for a second, it'll hold. It won't change focus right away. And I ended up missing shots that way. So I went back to the most active focus feature and just gave myself a little leeway with the expanded target center point plus a couple extra points to keep track of the bird or the motorcycle flying through the air.
Sure.
I'll give up 1 or 2 shots in a burst if I can get the rest of them in focus. But if I miss a bird and it falls off, it takes a while to get back on. But if I can lock on the bird right away, if I keep my focus points hovered around it, it'll generally stay focused for me.
Gotcha.
But I tried all the different focusing settings inside in the menu. How when it focuses, how long it holds it and stuff. I ended up going back to kind of the general default size, because every time I try to change it, I tend to mess myself up and get more loss. So
No.
that's my experience with that.
Yeah, I will say
I'm using the Canon 7D Mark II and the 5D Mark IV.
yeah, I was shooting primarily the 1D Mark IV, and then the the 1DX, and then I did try the 1DX2, and that was pretty phenomenal. But I never went for it finally because I shifted over what I was doing. But I don't know if the 1D bodies make a difference as compared to the 6D or the others.
I don't know. Well, thanks for that, guys. I'll read this a little bit more and jump back into it a little bit. But one of my problems was tracking a flock of brown pelicans coming towards me. And I'm holding my 600 as they come into my area, and they kept jumping from one to another, and it didn't track the whole group. So
I think Tom Hogan has some tutorials on that online for free.
What's his name?
THOMHOGAN.
Thank you.
You have to dig through his website to find some of these things. So Google search might be better. But
And Jeff just posted the rat and filter guide.
Oh, thank you.
So you want an 80A, B, C, or D, depending on how much correction?
B&H has hardly any of these. I just went through them in order to B.
Okay, well.
No Ds, a few
Tiffin
speed-
also has some.
Yeah, as I said, B&H has hardly anything. That includes Tiffin, Hoya, and some others.
Huh.
And most are on special order.
Yeah, it doesn't pay to keep filters in stock these days.
What I did find interesting was someone suggested I need a better color space gamut. And I went and looked it up, and Srgb and Adobe RGB at the red and blue points are the same. It's only in the green area that they actually make a difference.
Yeah, well, uh, if you're not doing your capture processing into ProPhoto RGB 16-bit, you're leaving a lot of image quality on the table.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
Because
just looking
that's
at the
one
color
of the
space diagram.
problems. Huh?
I'm just looking at the color space diagram, and I believe I am working in 16-bit on Photoshop.
On ProPhoto?
Yeah, I believe so. I need to double check.
Yeah, you need to double check that, because that's the other thing that when you scrunch things into a color space, that's like a sex change operation. Once you chop off color, you can't reattach it.
I had no idea my video was off. So do you work in ProPhoto RGB within Photoshop or just in Lightroom and Camera Raw?
Who are you asking?
Anyone, but especially you.
It's ProPhoto RGB all the time. The only time that I would go out to another color space is to export. So I convert to sRGB for the web. If I was sending out something to a photo lab, I would send it out in Adobe RGB, but otherwise it's ProPhoto RGB.
I agree completely.
What about monitors being able to handle Adobe RGB for editing?
Well, I use a NEC, whatever the fuck my model number is. I'm supposed to, because NEC gives it to me, I'm supposed to promote their models. But the model that I've got is a wide gamut, and it includes 98% of Adobe RGB. But here's the thing. Have you ever heard of the Nyquist Theorem?
Yeah.
Okay, so the Nyquist Theorem postulates that you need more data to work with when you're adjusting stuff than you need at the very end of the processing pipeline. And this actually relates to audio engineering, not so much digital imaging engineering. So the concept here is that if you cut off the amount of color space that the image is captured into, like I said, it's a sex change. It chops it off. And camera processing, it doesn't do a perceptual rendering. It's a relative colorimetric rendering. So if the color is out of gamut to a color space, it just chops it. It doesn't try to do any artful compression. So what ends up happening is if you're doing image processing in a smaller color space, if you drive colors near the boundaries of the outer perimeter of the color space gamut, you will end up losing color detail. If you're shooting black and white, it doesn't matter, right? But if you're shooting for color, and reds are particularly prone to loss of color information in detail, just because of the way the color spaces are set up. And there is an interesting history about the whole concept of color spaces. I can tell you a funny story if you want to hear it. It's a little bit geeky, and Stephen Shore might already know the story. But when Photoshop 5, now not CS5, but Photoshop 5 itself was under development, Thomas Knoll, Mark Hamburg, Bruce Fraser, myself, Stephen Johnson, Martin Evening, there were a couple of other people. Thomas and Mark had decided that Photoshop should probably have a color space that it works in, because all of a sudden everybody was talking about color space. And Michael Stokes, who at the time was working for, I think, HP, and the SMPTE, the Society for Motion Picture and Television Engineers, were working on color space actually for HD production, because everybody was going digital. And so Mark Hamburg did a Google search on color spaces and found a SMPTE 240M, which is just a designation for a certain set of color chromaticities, white balance, and gamma. And Bruce Fraser had worked, kind of knew a little something. Does everybody know who Bruce Fraser was? Kind of like one of the fathers of color management. He was actually a vegetarian Buddhist Scotsman that had to leave Scotland until he didn't go back to Scotland until what is it called when you can no longer be arrested for a crime a long time ago?
Statute of limitations.
Statute of limitations. He couldn't go back to Scotland until the statute. I never asked him what he was running from, but basically Hamburg and Bruce Fraser, Bruce actually came up with a color space, Bruce Rgb. And so SMPTE 240M, they included that as a color space in Photoshop 5. They also included Srgb, which was, at that time, Michael Stokes had moved to Microsoft, and the S for Srgb stood for one of the following things: either standard RGB, shitty RGB, or satanic RGB, depending upon what your thoughts on Microsoft was. I always thought of it as shitty RGB because it was such a small color space. But the bottom line was that SMPTE 240M was what was in the original shipping version of Photoshop 5. And the funny thing about SMPTE 240M is Mark had copied the chromaticities from this paper that had been submitted. This was a proposed working space, editing space. And two of the numbers were incorrect. They were typos on the submission. And of course, he copied down the typos, and that SMPTE 240M, SMPTE got in touch with Adobe and said, you know, you can't call this SMPTE 240M because A, we don't actually endorse things like this. And then B, the numbers were actually revised in a subsequent submission. So SMPTE 240M got renamed to Adobe RGB. So Adobe RGB is an accidental color space, but it just happened to work that those chromaticities worked out pretty good in terms of mapping color for transforming. Srgb, when Photoshop 5 shipped, in order to have a Windows compliant sticker on the box, any application had to have Srgb as a standard color space. And that's why some people called it satanic RGB. But the bottom line was that, and then ProPhoto RGB was actually developed by Kodak. Does anybody remember the Kodak Premiere machines? They would scan photographic images, extremely high res, do image manipulation, kind of like Photoshop, and then output photographic film again. Their internal color space was Rom Rgb, and I can't remember what ROMM stands for. Stephen, do you remember?
I don't remember that one, no.
Oh, but Rom Rgb, basically it was an artificially large color space. It contained chromaticity numbers that were outside of the realm of a theoretical possibility. In other words, light doesn't exist that represented that color. But the thing, because of Nyquist, the thing that was useful about the color space is it was so big that everything could be contained within Profoto RGB. Nothing would be clipped. So the only color space that can contain all of the colors that your sensor can capture and all of the colors that your display can show and all the colors that your printer can print is Profoto RGB. So only a fool would use anything other than Profoto RGB for image editing, not for output, just for image editing.
Well, actually, none of those things do an especially good job of rendering color.
None of what things?
Monitors, printers, whatever.
No, of course not. They're all limited by the constraints of physics, optics, and electronics.
Yeah, of what colors we can actually reproduce.
And what colors we can see.
Right, our eyesights are different too. So Melissa, you had your hand up?
I have my hand up. I'm that fool. So I was always told, and Jeff, please educate me because you're the master. I was always told I want to work in sRGB. So I've got Camera Raw set up for sRGB. I work within that color space and I export to send to my print lab. Am I doing?
Well, you're doing seniors and headshots and portraits.
Correct. So am I okay with sRGB?
So the lab wants sRGB or Adobe RGB?
The lab wants sRGB.
Yeah. So how much image editing and image processing are you doing before you send it to the lab?
I mean, not a whole lot. I mean, I guess probably for the things that you guys do, like with all the landscapes where you want all the sunset colors and everything, maybe that would be the case. But I go through, contrast and that kind of thing, and I change that in Camera Raw, and then I do have an action that I apply that adds a little kind of punch to my photos. But that's about it. I don't.
If you're talking about skin tone rendering, the interesting thing is that skin tone is in a small enough area. The color space, sRGB color space, can probably render skin tone just as well as the other color spaces. And Stephen might talk to this a little bit more because he shoots a lot more skin tone in people. But the bottom line is if you were making substantial or important color space or color modifications and adjustments, you're probably cheating yourself a little bit by using sRGB as an image processing. What I would personally do is bring it into Photoshop in Profoto RGB,
okay,
do all my image editing, and then export out of Photoshop to sRGB. And that also what's important to remember is that you convert from Profoto to sRGB and then convert to 8-bit before saving the file. I got into an argument with some Yahoo that thought that it didn't matter whether the image was in 8-bit or 16-bit when you converted to sRGB. And I said, well, just think about it. You need more bits for, Nyquist theorem. So I'm not saying that you should run out there and change your way of working automatically. But if I were to start over again at this point, I'd probably go to process into a Profoto RGB 16-bit, do the image adjustments, retouching, all that work in Profoto, and then export to sRGB to send to the lab.
I mean, it might be worth an experiment to try it out and see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But where the big difference is going to be is where you have color that is, if you know what a horseshoe map or a gamut map looks like, if you have color that is close to the maximum color in a gamut map, the difference between Profoto RGB and sRGB will be critical. And landscape photography and things with, shooting flowers and stuff that is hyper colorful, sRGB would be a terrible color space to work in.
Two things. Can I share something out? And what would you set your camera to? What mode?
Are you
What do you
talking to
mean?
No, I'm talking to John and Jeff. John, can I share something? And Jeff, what would you set your camera space for capture?
Is this a trick question?
No.
Well, in my
Well,
camera, I only have, Jeff, in
I
my
think-
camera, I only have two choices, which is sRGB and Adobe sRGB. And since Adobe sRGB gives you a little bit more space, that's what I always shoot.
But that affects the JPEGs.
Well, I
It
never
shouldn't
shoot
affect the
JPEGs.
RAWs.
Yeah, I never shoot JPEGs.
Yeah, so it shouldn't matter what you set it to, unless you're saving the JPEGs. But going in a different direction, I'm getting a question from Arlene over on Facebook. What's the best way to consolidate years of photos on various cards and portable drives and partly on the laptop in Lightroom already? I don't want to store all my laptop because of space, and I need to scan in prints. My goal is to be able to access all in one place. Do most people use multiple catalogs or one catalog? And I already answered that. I'm a single catalog person. I've got over 300,000 images in a catalog and don't see any performance issues.
Same with me.
And scanning, I've been doing scanning by rephotographing images as opposed to using a scanner. I find it to be much quicker, and I'm getting decent quality.
Well, if you're talking about 35 millimeter, I agree with you. I've got my Imicon scanner set up on an old G4 laptop so that I can scan film at high res. But 2.25 and 4x5 and 8x10, I'm still actually scanning the film. But 35 millimeter color and black and white, I agree with you. It's the Nikon Z7 45, 46 megapixel. I'm resolving the film grain, so I don't see any reason to do a scan.
Yeah, and she asked follow up on that. How do you store on multiple hard drives? For myself, I'm using a desktop machine, not a laptop. So I have a bunch of external drives, but I keep like one 10 terabyte drive that has all my work files on it, a backup of that, and then a backup that's offsite of that. For my wife, who's only working from her laptop, I have it set up with she keeps all her images in Lightroom, but I keep them on an external drive because there's no space on the MacBook to keep her photos. But it's one drive, and Lightroom can do basic catalog work, keywords and things like that when the drive isn't attached. So we only have to attach the drive when she needs to edit a file or print it or something like that.
I agree. I've got, and basically I work off of a RAID 5 array, and it's got 36 terabytes, and I've got about 10 terabytes free. I've got an exact clone of that I use Carbon Copy Cloner to copy every night, so that every night it's not internal, it's external. The main drive gets backed up, and then I've got a tertiary drive. Although because of the pandemic, I have not stored it at my daughter's house because we don't go down there. So I've got all three of them in my house. So if I have a house fire, I'm going to be grabbing my hard drive and the box of family photos. And
yeah, so for me, I've got a fireproof box with the hard drive in it, and that's inside another box, and inside is safe because the same thing I haven't been able to do in offsite recently.
That's why I started using Backblaze recently.
Yeah, I did that too.
I keep a backup drive in the spare tire of my car in case I have to evacuate quickly, no matter where. I've got something that's once a week is up to date.
Are you in California?
No, I mean in Washington.
Oh, Washington State.
Yeah.
Not Washington, D.C. I hope you don't have to evacuate there.
No.
And Teresa Meyer was saying Synology is another solution.
Well, I just started doing something different because when I travel, I use a MacBook Pro with limited amounts of storage. And I got frustrated in trying to move things from my MacBook Pro to my RAID array. And so because it just never seemed to carry everything across. So what I do now is my Lightroom directory index and all the thumbnails, I now have on an SSD drive that's attached to my iMac. And when I travel, I just take that off and I put that on my MacBook Pro and another external drive where I put all of the images. Then when I get home, I attach everything back to my desktop, and within Lightroom, move all the images onto my RAID array. So I lose absolutely nothing in the way of editing I've done while I've been traveling. And I find it much easier than other ways of trying to move things around. It takes a little bit longer, but I set it up to go and then I go have lunch.
Does anyone else have?
I won't argue with that. Seth Resnick does basically the same thing, except for he doesn't have an SSD. He's got a bigger catalog file than I have, but he travels with his main catalog copied over to a drive, and he for stuff that he wants to work on, he actually creates smart previews, which allows you to bring the images into Lightroom and do light duty editing as well as keywording. That's the big thing that Seth is a little anal when it comes to keywording. And when I say a little anal, I mean really fucking anal. I take a different approach. I have, because I don't really have any expectation of wanting to work on images seriously when I'm on the road, because I don't trust the laptop display to make color critical decisions. I create a catalog for the project or for the shot where I'm going, for example, and then I'll shoot everything and back it up to an external drive, actually 2 external drives. I have the main catalog and the external storage. I duplicate that, but then when I come back, I import the catalog into my main catalog. So I import the location catalog into the main catalog and then copy all the files onto the my main array. And that seems to work. And I just have this process of doing it a certain way, and that seems to work. And otherwise you can do what Stephen does and be like a hermit crab and carry your shell around wherever you go.
So I actually got to see Jim Brasher in person 2 nights ago on a photo walk in town. It was good to get out and see other photographers. How'd you do that night?
Nice. It was weird to have a camera in my hand and be out with people after a year and a half of don't see people, wear a mask. It was nice. And honestly, some of the photos were good, but mostly it was just seeing
The
you
social.
and your wife and playing with some new gear I got at Glazier's earlier that day. It was fun. But thinking photographically again, more than with my camera was, because for most of this, I've been really concerned about keeping my wife safe because she's on some drugs that get back to her immune system. And so photography was just like, screw it, I don't care. I'll deal with that later. Well, now it's later. And I'm like, yeah, composition. It's a thing.
Very cool. It was always good to see you.
Thank you. It was great to see you too. Weird, but great, in a very nice way.
John's smaller than he looks on camera, isn't he?
John is a very big personality. You can get distracted by his physical size, but
Yeah, you should see Jeff and I standing next to each other. It's like Shiwi and mini Shiwi.
I still have more hair on top than you.
Yes, there we go.
Not a lot.
And in the back too, right? I shorn mine off.
So did Jim mention a camera store? Is that what did you-
Glazer's Cameras, our local camera store here,
Oh,
and they had
okay.
their summer photo fest sale this weekend.
I'm just not used to being in a city that has a camera store. We don't have one, so that
Well,
would be.
you're going to be here in
that'll be a
August,
field
right?
trip. Yeah, that'll be a field trip in August. I'm gonna go to the store.
Yeah, I'll take you on a tour.
Yeah.
Don't forget Kenmore camera.
Yeah. Kenmore Camera is also nearby. It's about 15 miles away, and they're an old supermarket converted to a camera store. So it's gigantic place.
Oh, that sounds like fun.
And Glazer's just built a new store, 2 stories plus their rental store down the street. So we're lucky here.
I just posted a picture on my Facebook thread about Pose Camera. Was a camera store here in Chicago, actually in Evanston. It started in Evanston. And the pro photographers, Helix, Altman's, Central Camera, we had a lot of really big camera, even Calumet, big camera stores in Chicago. Most of them are all gone. Although Dodd Camera from Ohio came into Chicago, and they seem to be doing okay. Central Camera, who had this just absolutely gorgeous old time neon sign that said Central Camera, unfortunately was broken into and burned.
Yes, during the riots.
Riots. And but they're going to rebuild, and apparently the sign just it's okay. It will be able to be fixed up, but they're still in business, working next door. The owner said that you know, it was a family tradition that they had to reopen. But it was interesting talking about all the camera stores that used to be that aren't anymore. Although B&H started out literally as a camera store before they started doing mail order, right?
Yes, them and Adorama.
Adorama.
Around the same time. Before them, the big one was 47th Street Photo in New York.
47th, yeah.
47th,
I remember
but they,
getting screwed by 47th Street Photo and saying, I'm never going to do mail order again. But now I order from B&H all the time.
yeah, 47th Street, I think eventually got closed down for some tax issues. Their motto was we save $1 on every, we lose $1 on every sale, but make it up in volume.
Yeah. The funny thing about B&H is one of the reasons I like B&H is that I was assigned an account manager, a sales manager, basically somebody that I could call if I had any problems. And his name was Christian, and he liked to go by he said that he was the only Christian working at B&H. You got to understand, B&H is a very Jewish, Hasidic Jewish store. You can't order stuff from B&H on Saturday because they close. They don't sell stuff on Saturday.
Right.
But not
Adorama
even
is the
online.
same.
Even the online ordering is closed down.
Yeah.
Right.
Online is closed down from sunset Friday. To sunset Saturday.
Yes, yes, it opens up again Saturday.
Actually,
evening.
it's when you can see 3 stars in the sky. Because you can't tell sunset as well, but you can definitely tell when you can see 3 stars.
Glazer's is also a family-run business, and they've been working hard to stay afloat and keep photographers afloat during all of this. They've had curbside pickups. You could order stuff, drive up to the store, and they would run possibly a lot of stuff out to you, or expensive stuff out to you.
Glazer's here in Seattle has been really good about that.
Yeah, and they finally let us into the store again. But yeah, their photo fest was not as well attended, just because a lot of us were like, I don't need anything, or finances are disrupted by the pandemic and stuff.
Yeah. Another nice thing about Glazer's is when they built the new store, they put an underground parking garage with 20 spaces.
Yes.
So you got free parking there too. Good
Jeff,
people.
have you ever been to ProCam?
What was that, Melissa?
I was just asking Jeff if he'd ever been to ProCam.
Yeah.
It's in one of the suburbs. I can't remember which one.
Yeah.
That's where I've gone. I mean, there's a program in Detroit as well, but we have nothing. I have to go a couple hours away to get to a camera store.
Where are you located?
I'm in Midland, Michigan. So right in the middle of the mitten.
Oh, yeah, you're from the hometown that gave rise to Mark Hamburg. The #2 engineer on Photoshop is from Midland, Michigan. And
Really?
of course, well, Michigan is the home of Photoshop. You knew that, right?
No, I had no idea.
Thomas Knoll lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he was working on a doctoral thesis on computer vision when his brother John, whose day job was special effects supervisor at Industrial Light and Magic, ILM, out in California, asked Thomas if he could give him a hand because John was taking computer imagery from one computer control system and trying to move it over to another control system. And he needed some way of doing a file format utility and talked Thomas into doing what ended up being Photoshop. Photoshop is just a really elaborate file format utility program.
Interesting. Yeah, my hometown is known for Dow Chemical Company. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of Dow Chemical, but
Oh, yeah.
Once or twice.
yeah, it's good to know that we're famous for something other than Dow.
Yeah. Well, and the funny thing is, I asked Thomas. I visited Thomas a couple of times at his house in Ann Arbor. I said, and he took me to lunch at a. It's also, I may get this wrong. It's either Michigan State or University of Michigan is in Ann Arbor, and they hate one another. What is it?
They do. University of Michigan is in Ann Arbor.
Okay, University of Michigan is in Ann Arbor. So I asked Thomas, I said, do the people in Ann Arbor know that the father of Photoshop lives here in Ann Arbor? And he says, no. Thomas doesn't say a lot. He's very kind of quiet.
I just put a link to a Facebook group about bygone camera stores that someone posted, Hank Leiter posted over on Facebook. And Teresa is asking if anyone's headed to Photoville this weekend. I don't know if I know what Photoville is.
What's Photoville?
Let's see if she mentions it over on the Facebook thread.
Me, I'm headed to the exciting city of Kansas City this weekend.
Kansas City, here I come.
No longer in Barbados?
Got back a week ago. I'm still trying to.
Photoville is 10 years old.
Where is it, or what is it?
Free photo festival and year-round activation of public spaces and educational community programming. It amplifies visual storytellers and connects them to a worldwide diverse audience. So public exhibition of photos.
It says New York and Los Angeles.
Teresa's looking for a link, or Jim, if you want to post the link into the chat, that'd be
Is
great.
it just this weekend, or does it run longer?
Year-round in Brooklyn. And they put up photo fences. In fact, I just saw their photo fence in Seattle, actually, where they'll take a fence and just put in a treated canvas long line of photos. So I've heard about them, but it was a New York thing that I just never was going to get to.
So is anyone in here other than Tony doing film these days? Give Tony something to talk about.
There was actually someone shooting film at the photo walk, and one of the teenagers had a.
Oh yeah, Savannah had her C330 Mamiya Flex.
Yes, but one of the teenagers had a Fuji film camera.
Yeah, it was good to see young people with doing film.
Yeah.
when it comes to how images are captured, I'm completely non-denominational. But I got really aggravated this morning when I saw on Facebook a video where a guy was singing the praises of film as if it were better than everything else. And it just really annoyed me. I felt like he was saying you should be riding horses instead of driving cars. And horses are fine too, but.
I mean, it's whatever your artistic, it's whatever inspires you.
Exactly.
Again, if Polaroid 55 was here, they'd be all over it.
I still have a friend who does 16x20 platinum palladium prints on a regular basis. His stuff is great. I'm not going to do them, but more power to him.
I love film, but I shoot promiscuously, and digital is the only way to go when you shoot indiscriminately like that.
I find digital just easier. It works, and I'm able to make the shots that I want to make. I like film. I have a strong affection for my old Olympus OM1, and I used to take it out once a year at least. I haven't in a few years, well, even before the pandemic. But Lasers is trying to do a film of the month, and I think this year it's Kodak Gold. And so they're trying to stimulate more film attention, which I think is a great thing.
We all got to say, get that for me when somebody's phone rings.
I find that I shoot much differently with film or digital. With film, I always was shooting to capture a very specific image. But with digital, when I'm shooting with an intention of producing something that may not be in front of me when I'm shooting. I already know what it's going to look like, and I know why I'm capturing what I'm capturing. But I also know what's going to be on paper at the end may have little relationship to what I've actually shot.
I still think I think film, because I often come back from a session with many fewer images than I thought I shot. It's like I do a sequence of a portrait of someone, and I think I shot 5, but when I get home, there's only 2.
I took my Leica 3F with me on some shooting last week, and I just like shooting it. I like the sound it makes. I like the feel of it. I like looking through the viewfinder. I like looking through the little focus viewfinder. It's just fun. You know, and I have in mind what I think I'm shooting at the time. So we'll see what happens when I get the film back from it. I just enjoy it. I always like film.
Yeah, and I think that's great. It's just that, as I said, I get annoyed when people pick one way of recording images and try to say that's the best and only way.
Well, then you should talk to people about the difference between Sony, Nikon, and Canon. Only one of them works.
Exactly.
And Mac and PC.
That could drive anybody crazy.
I've got a thing. Can you allow me to share screen?
Yeah, let me find you in the group here. Where are you? You're hiding from me. There you are. You should be able to now.
Yep. Okay, you guys can see my screen?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So this was central camera. Literally, it says since 1899, which is kind of interesting. The camera itself, I mean, the sign itself, this is the neon version. It's also nicely painted, and it's got some interesting, they had, you know, this great display window. And unfortunately, this is what it looked like during the riots. The entire store was burned out, and they actually, because they're pack rats, they had stored a lot of really old cameras for no particular reason other than cameras seem to make really good collectors of dust. So they had displays, but they are going to come back and rebuild. And they're actually working, they're selling from outside of what is the house store right next door. That was They're still open and selling stuff. I haven't been down there though, but that's it.
Nice.
I'm very glad they're managing to survive, because I mean, these are not easy times for small businesses. And there's a lot of small businesses. I was driving through a part of town I haven't been through in a while in Kirkland, one of the suburbs. And there's just empty storefront after empty storefront after empty storefront. And one of them I know was an art gallery. And I forget what the others were.
What town was that?
Kirkland.
Oh, I didn't know you were so close.
Yeah.
I'm in Shoreline.
Oh, yeah.
I took you for a New Yorker.
Really? Why?
I don't know.
Well, other than our New York crowd here, yeah. But
Yeah.
Guess I'm the
Georgina, how are you doing?
Who's a New York crowd?
Me.
never enjoyed going to camera stores. I just, I lived really close to Sammy's, and they're in a 4-story building, but I would hardly ever go there. Typically, when I would buy something, it would be because I, met the rep and talked about it, and they sent it to me, and I played with it, on and on and on. Or I'd go to one of the big, the PPA conventions or whatever, and I'd see stuff with the manufacturers. But then I would call my rep at Sammy's and just buy it, and they send it to me. And that's pretty much the way I always did it.
I pretty much do the same thing with Arlington Camera here in Texas. I have the cell phone number of the owner. I call him up. I tell him what I want. He has my credit card number. He just sends it out.
Same thing.
Well, for a lot of us, it was a social thing, though. So I remember when Glazer's was closed for a couple of months, or in a small store before they opened their new one, and on their opening night, it was just all the photographers from Seattle. We got big studios here for like Nordstrom's and Amazon and the like. So everyone just came together just to have a social time.
Well, here in Dallas, once a year, the Texas PPA runs Texas School, and Arlington Camera manages the trade show portion of it. And so it's a week-long party, and there's a big trade show, so you can see whatever you want. And Bill Porter, who owns the camera store and runs it with his wife and daughter and a bunch of other people, are just always there, and everybody knows them, and that becomes the big social thing every year. Plus, Bill and his family show up at all sorts of PPA events during the year.
Yeah, for us, it's a brother sister who own Glazer's.
Yeah, I was talking with one of the folks at Glazer's about they've got the classroom and trying to do more community stuff, because there's more people getting into photography, and we've got some folks like John who are just well connected and who have this community, but there's a lot of folks who are like, I've got this camera, what do I do with it other than just make photos? How do I get feedback? How do I learn? And that's how I learned how to be a better photographer, was hanging out with photographers, and then we're going, well, you could change those camera settings, really.
On one of my New York trips, I did make it a point to go to B&H and Adorama, just to say that I did and went there. But that's all.
A very different experience between the two, wasn't it?
Oh, considerably. I was surprised at Adorama.
Adorama is like this little hole in the wall.
Yeah, but it was very fun, however.
Yeah.
That's
B&H has got this block-long building, like 4 or 5 stories, with all these conveyor belts going through, carrying all the packages. I mean, it's a really wild scene there.
Yeah.
When 47th Street Photo was around, their showroom, their room was smaller than my kitchen. It was pretty tiny.
Yes. You just went up to the counter, told them what you wanted, and waited for someone to bring it out to you.
And you had to walk up to the second floor. It wasn't even at ground level.
Right. They were in the middle of the Diamond District.
Well, my office was 1 block away. I was in 1 Rockefeller Center on 48th Street, and they were on 40th.
And there was
there's some funny rumors about B&H. Mueller will tell you that they would sometimes show up out at the Canon warehouse on Long Island and fill up a van load worth of Canon camera equipment and pay in cash. like
Not-
$30,000 worth of
Mhm.
camera equipment in cash. And Mueller was always scratching his head. And then the other thing is that basically the rumor had it that the family that owned B&H were actually diamond dealers, and they just ran B&H as a hobby, which kind of would almost make sense. I don't know. Stephen, do you have any background on that?
I don't have any insight in that at all.
No, but
Oh,
thinking
oh.
back to the olden days, when B&H would offer a US warranty and a black market or gray market warranties. So that may had something to do with the cash purchases, because you used to be able to get a cheaper version from B&H that wouldn't have a US warranty. But no one does that anymore that I know of.
Yeah, the gray market was weird because that's one of the things that Nikon and Canon tended to, the US was the Canon's largest by far market compared to Europe and even Asia. And they would artificially kind of increase the price on stuff in the US market, partially because they could, and then also partially to allow, quote, discounts. And then when the camera companies could basically go to Asia and buy, you know, a shit ton of cameras and bring it into the US and pay import duties and everything, and still be able to sell it for less than the, sometimes less than the cost that the retailers could buy it for. I was going to mention one other thing, and if anybody knows when and how, there's a movie that I really want to see, and so far, irritatingly, it's not streaming anywhere, but it's Minamata, which is the film about God damn, what the hell's his name? Oh God, not Walker Evans.
W. Eugene Smith.
Yeah, W. Eugene Smith. Thank you. I actually met Smith at RIT. But how, what happened when he went to Japan to document a chemical spill? It should be a very interesting film. It stars Johnny Depp and I don't know, Bill Nighy is in it. It'll be interesting to see what Japan thinks about this movie, because it does not portray, well, at least the local government and the company does not portray the Japanese all that well. But I really like Eugene Smith's photography, and it'll be interesting to see, because Johnny Depp apparently runs around and actually had to take photo lessons because he's, you know, just so that he could behave and be the right appearance of photographer.
A couple of years ago, I saw a movie about Smith's loft in New York, and it became a gathering place for jazz musicians. And so this whole movie was about jazz in his loft in the off hours.
Yes, I've seen that.
But the greatest story, and it's one of the jazz musicians was talking about Smith, and he said he would grab a 100-sheet box of 8x10 paper and go into his darkroom, and he'd be gone for like 24 hours, and he'd come out 24 hours later with one print. He was a real perfectionist.
What was the name of the movie?
I cannot remember. There was a couple of years ago.
I remember a photograph that when you mentioned the W. Eugene Smith in Japan, there was an image of a mother holding her daughter in a bathtub, a wooden tub.
Very famous image.
She was, yeah, that's what jumped to my mind.
I'm trying to remember if there was an.
I was also going to say I watched the movie that Rick Salmon.
Yeah.
The thing with Adam Driver with the girl walking the the camels across Australia.
Hmm.
It actually was a very good film. It was worth watching.
Where were you able to
Alice
find
to
that?
Wherever.
What?
I think Amazon has it.
Oh, it does. Okay, because I thought I couldn't find it when I looked the last time.
That was from the book Alice to Ocean.
Yeah.
Right. I just put a link into the Jazz by Eugene Smith movie.
Oh, good. I would watch that again.
The Jazz Loft, according to W. Eugene Smith, came out in 2015.
Here in Dallas, a friend of mine runs the Dallas Video Fest. And a lot of the things I've seen at the Video Fest. And that was probably one that would have been very typical of what was shown at the Video Fest. So I don't always know where the films are available other places. Although the better ones usually do end up showing up someplace else online.
Well, it's really crazy right now because filmmakers, producers are like, do we try and stream it? Do we wait till we get people back in theaters? Because that's about to happen, sort of. So it's crazy. So just be patient. Things will eventually be out on streaming in a year or two anyway. So
yes. A few months ago, I went to there's a chain here of bookstores called Half Price Books. They're mainly used books, and the mothership store is here in Dallas, and it's huge.
Yeah.
It has a very large photo section.
There was 2 large ones here in Seattle, and they both closed within the past couple of years.
Oh, that's a shame. That they have several here in Dallas, and they're all still
Mhm.
going. But anyway, I was there, and I came across about a 700-page book on Steichen, and I started thumbing through it, and I decided to buy it. And I glanced up, and there was a 500-page book on Stieglitz. So I decided I had to buy both of these books and read them both. I'm about halfway through the book on Steichen, but now I'm really drawn to the Stieglitz book also, because the author of the book is giving lots and lots of credit to Steichen for things that Stieglitz is known for. And so I'm really interested to read the other side, to read the Stieglitz biography, to try to get a balance on who actually did what between the two of them. But Steichen's early life was definitely amazing. I mean, I'm up to all of 1908 or 1909 now. But I would recommend the book to any photographer.
So Ian, you're going to share with us what you're laughing about? It's like being in school and the teacher calls on you.
Sorry, no, it was just my handyman. I just called him because the water filter outside is leaking. So, and he said, "Why does it happen when it's this hot out? Why do things go wrong?" So we were just laughing about that. So he'll get
for those who tuned in late, Ian said it's about 118 in Palm Springs today.
Yeah, it's only 104 right now, so it's still chilly. But yeah, all this week we're supposed to be between 118 and 121.
I can make arrangements for you to rent that house in Barbados. It was only 82 degrees there with a really nice breeze.
So I have 8 tons of air conditioning, so I'll get by. And I have a great pool, and so I'm just fine. I live in a resort.
I'll have to come visit you when I come down to Palm Springs.
Every photographer that comes visits me, the first thing they say is, "Can you have models there?"
Show them a couple airplanes.
I was wondering, when I lived in Colorado, I've gone to Denver a few times, plenty of times, and each time I went down there, I made a point to go to Camera Oscura. It's a fine art gallery down there, and it's closed now, but I was just wondering how many people have been there. And that Hal Gould, the director, I think he's passed away, but I could post
I'm
a
not
link
familiar
to
with it.
I'll post a link to an article on the Denver Post about it.
Cool. Well, I was starting to ask Regina if she had anything she wanted to talk about today. I saw you unmuted for a moment, but we've been talking over you.
Hi, guys.
Hey.
I'm just here in Oklahoma and hanging out, taking photos. And
Cool.
what I've been doing recently is I've been doing the NFT stuff. And someday I'd like to share some of that stuff. It's I don't know if it's because I'm old, but it's been quite the adventure so far, learning all of that stuff. And then the other day, one of the other photographers was talking about how it's strange to get back out into the, taking photos and being around other people. And so I've been isolated for quite some time now. And but I had one of the local banks here contact me and say, we're getting ready to open up another branch in this very small town here, and we would like to have some photos of the town in the new lobby. And so can you do that? And I'm like, yeah, sure, that'll work. And we talked all that out. And then they said, but we need to have it. We need to have all the photos. And they wanted 15 photos in 3 days. And so we've had nothing but rain here. Rain. So I was like, well, I'm going to see how that's going to work out, right? So I got 1 day to basically go take all these shots. But I went with one of my really close photographer friends here, Wes Hallmark, and we went to this very small town and took photos. And I think that they thought we were some big wig production people or something walking around with all our cameras. It was kind of funny, their reaction to us. And but everything was locked up. It was on a Sunday and everything was locked up behind gates, fences, everything. So I wound up taking my pickup truck and backing it up to the fences. And then I always take a stepladder with me when I go on location because I'm short. I'm a short person. And so I was standing in the bed of the truck on my stepladder, trying to get good compositions over these fences and these locked none shall pass areas.
But these are for banks. This is for a bank, right?
It was for a bank, but they wanted.
So you should have shot all the locked up gates.
Right, I
to
should
show
have
the security
actually,
of the
yes.
bank.
Right. They wanted the town and they wanted creative, colorful. That's specifically, they said colorful, creative, different perspective. Did I do something?
No,
Oh, there was a phone popped up on the call or something.
that's
screen.
someone joining in by
Anyway.
phone.
So, but that was the first time I've been out shooting in a while, well, over a year and a half now. And it was interesting to get back out amongst others, I guess you could say. And at the same time, and I'm so thankful. I've been shooting for a while and I'm really glad. I'm thankful to myself because it did come back pretty naturally. I was a little worried, about being able to provide quality images for the bank after not shooting for a while, but it did kick in pretty good. And I got 13 out of their 15 images that they wanted. So
Great.
it all worked out, but it was so good to get back out and just shoot creatively. And so me and Wes are going to try to do this more often. We're just going to go pick a small town and go take photos. So it was overall, it was a great experience. But it was odd getting back out there, you know.
So on the NFTs, are you creating some or are you just doing research about them?
Well, I've been doing this now for about 5 months and doing the research and stuff. And I've created one, like my Genesis NFT. And it's been minted and listed and all that. The process though, just learning about what Ethereum is, what ETH is, what the blockchain actually does. And I love the whole concept. And so I think what I'm doing is I'm sticking with the 70s theme. So all the images I'm creating are pulling back into this nostalgia of the 70s. And I'm wanting to use this technology that, to bring forth the 70s is what I'm trying to do. So, and I'm in the middle of creating my second one, but the biggest thing that I find, I think the hardest thing is that because of the minting process and the blockchain process, everything, and I mean everything, not just the image or the composition or the animation, whatever you're doing, everything has to be perfect. And even the way you write it up, the listing, everything has to be perfect, because once it's out there, it's out there. You can't go back and edit. You can't go back and even change like the write up about it, or, you know, anything. Everything, once you click that button, it has to be perfect. And that's kind of nerve wracking to me. You know? It's like, you know, I'm like, I keep looking at things and double check, but it does make you slow down, and it makes you, you know, really pay attention to what you're doing, every little detail.
Are you willing to talk about the cost of putting it together with them?
Of course. I mean, the place that I went, that I'm using, the platform is called Portion, Portion. And there are many different platforms. There's OpenSeas and Foundation, and some of those platforms, though, you have to be invited onto by other members. So it's not like you can just go on and list. I chose Portion because I really liked that they're all about the photographer. They're all about the artist. Maybe I should say that. They're all about the artist. But they're in beta testing, so things are a little wonky, and you don't get a lot of exposure, and you can't tell how many people have liked your image or viewed it or anything like that. So they're just out there. So I am thinking about my second NFT. I'm thinking about going to OpenSeas and trying it. But the cost is all based on primarily how much ETH is at the time. So it's kind of like a gamble. It's kind of like Wall Street. And there for a while, ETH was pretty high. I think it was like $4,000 something for one ETH. And so your gas fees, that's what you're talking about, the cost. Your gas fees will, you pay the gas fees so that they can data mine and create the blockchain and then list it. And those are all determined by how much ETH is at the time. So mine, and also depends upon how big your image is, your megabytes, okay? Because they have to do more data mining, okay? So mine was, I kept mine under 10 megabytes is what I did. And mine was, it was $150, almost $200 by the time it was said and done to mint it and list it and get it up there and go live, which is not bad. You can get a lot more. It can get a lot more, but it depends upon what's going on. Now, one of the things I ran into is I thought about removing my initial NFT off of Portion, because I just haven't, I'm not really feeling it. You know, I'm not feeling the love per se. But to do that, you have to pay more gas fees to burn it, meaning like burn it off, I guess, the internet, destroy it. And then you have to pay again at the other platform to relist it, to remint it. You have to pay those fees over again. So it's like this balance of waiting until the gas fees are low enough to where you can mint, but then at the same time, you know, you want the gas fees to be higher, where if you do sell, then you get some money out of it. So that's where I'm at right now.
Well, if one day you feel like you want to talk about it for a whole hour here, let me know. I just saw Michael Newler.
I might do that. If you think you had some people that were interested in it, I would.
I'm sure we'll find people interested.
Because it's been an interesting process, but I have found it to be very difficult. I wrote about it on my blog several times, and I could share those things and stuff like that, and then talk about more.
Michael Newler just posted something about the Thai government's SEC, Securities Exchange Commission, banning cryptocurrency trading and NFTs and the like. But again, that's the Thai government. I don't know if he meant to post that. I think it was the US SEC. But I don't know if other people will follow along, other countries will follow Thailand.
Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to go check that out, actually. That's, I wonder why they did that. I'm sure it's in the article. I'll go look at that and see. Because I mean, basically the whole idea behind the blockchains is that it's kind of like the platforms are like a gallery. So you choose your gallery, but the blockchains and minting it allow it to be tracked, and it's public. Anybody can go check it out. So it can go, it'll tell you who they're 100%. This is the artist owner of this. This is the artist. They did this. There's no question. And then when it gets bought, it tracks who bought it. So it's like a certificate of authentication to whoever bought it. And then if they decide to resell that piece of artwork, that all follows. So it really gives, like, it helps the artist, because it's not like, yeah, you can go and take a screenshot of it, or yeah, you can go, you know, steal it off of the web and then print it on your wall. But you don't have that actual certificate saying this is the actual owner. This is the person who did it. And this is the artist and the owner. And that's the difference with the blockchain. This is what I really like.
Okay. I just posted a link to the Yahoo Finance story about the Thai government and SEC.
Excellent. I will definitely go check that out.
Cool.
That's wonderful. Well, thanks. Thanks for letting me say something.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Sure. Anytime. Well, Stephen, are you here twice, or one of you stuck?
I'm moving computers.
Ah.
There we go.
Hey, how is Michael? I haven't seen him for a while.
What was that? Yeah.
Wanted to see if anybody would be interested in seeing a project that is a work in progress.
Go for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's yours.
Ian, were you trying to say something about the NFTs?
Nothing important. It can wait.
Okay.
So you guys are seeing my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So one of the projects that I'm working on is the Visual Conservancy, which sadly is going to have to go to a private Facebook group, because Facebook just changed some of the rules, and Carl basically got pissed off at Facebook and said, fuck it, I'm going to take the group private. But they made it so that anybody could post or make comments, and then the moderator would have to moderate the comments. And so Carl doesn't want to do that, because he doesn't want this Facebook group to be a full-time job. But anyway, my little project is to do a booklet, and it'll probably be a blurb magazine. Actually, Carl did a magazine, and it looks like a soft-covered book. It actually looks quite good, and I was shocked. So this is what I'm planning on doing. I've got the 100-image kind of screenshot of all of the images, and then I've got an intro on the inside cover explaining the project, and then kind of me, about me on the back cover, or the back inside cover. And then the pages basically look like this. The text at the bottom is the Facebook post text that I actually posted, and the date that I posted about the image. Currently, I've got the page number at the top in the center. The page number is also the post number, and I'm not sure if that's going to remain. But basically, these are all the images in the order in which I posted them. And I'm kind of surprisingly, I kind of like the way in which the grouping ended up. It's purely, you know, happenstance, but it is kind of interesting how it turned out. Although when I was posting, I was also kind of trying to think about how things would go together. I love the shot of the 4 women all dressed the same. So basically, this is a project and it'll be a blurb book for sale, probably 30 something, so it won't be hugely expensive. I'm planning on also selling the electronic form and then doing postcards and maybe a poster of the main image.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So,
Looks
thoughts
great.
on
It
it?
really does.
Any thoughts?
It looks great. I think it really looks great.
I
agree.
think.
Yeah, truly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you for sharing that.
I must
Anyway.
admit, I posted a photo on Visual Conservancy a couple of weeks ago, and it was a visual joke, and I feel like nobody got the visual joke because it was a picture of a package of cookies, and the name on the package of cookies was Original Shirley, and obviously
Kodak Shirley.
Excuse me?
The Kodak Shirley.
Exactly. But it was this red package of cookies, and I ran across it in the Stop and Shop in Barbados, and I got so excited about it. The woman with the cash register had no idea why I was excited about a pack of cookies that were common in Barbados.
The history of the Shirley. That's be another topic for a discussion.
Right.
Well, you know why it's called a Shirley, right, John?
I did at some point.
Well, the head photographer that worked for Kodak, every time they would come out with a new emulsion, he had to do this kind of shot with color charts and skin tone. And he used his secretary for the skin tone. She would hold the stuff up, and her name was Shirley.
Okay.
And literally hundreds of, if not thousands of pictures of Shirley in the beginning. They changed it later. So it just started being called a Shirley.
Really?
And I can't remember the guy's name, but he talked about it because he thought it was pretty funny that, and I'm not sure what Shirley thought about being.
Well, and now even things that never had her picture on it are still called Shirley.
Yes.
Yes.
In any color chart. That's why I thought
Cool.
the package of Original Shirley was so humorous. But obviously people don't have my my historical sense of humor.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to say so long for the day. Go on and get some things done. It was great talking to everyone. These open discussions are a lot of fun. Get to hear some stories, share some photos. So thank you all. Till next time.
Thanks, John.
Regina, where are you in
Thank you,
Oklahoma?
John.
Thank you, John.
Sure. So
Yeah,
there's a
Jeff.
question for Regina.
Where am I at in Oklahoma? I'm
Yes.
in a small town called Chickasha, Oklahoma, but it's like 60 miles south of Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay.
If that helps a reference.
Yeah. This time next week, I'll be in Muskogee.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I actually know where that's at.
Well, that's a little bigger.
Yeah, it's a little bigger. Exactly. Oh, cool. Okay.
Have you
Well,
ever heard of
enjoy yourself.
Mazio's Pizza?
Now what?
Mazio's Pizza in Tulsa?
Yep.
I used to do a lot of food photography for them. I
Really?
actually had to come down to Tulsa and shoot in their kitchens. They eventually let me shoot here, but originally I had to come down there, and it was funny because it was when Tulsa was still a dry county. You had to be a member of the club in order to buy drinks, and the art director, who was British for some reason, I don't know why a Brit would end up being an art director in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but he said, now you gotta oh, sorry.
Buy a membership?
Yeah, you gotta buy a membership, and it was $1 or $10 or something. And I said, how long is this good? And it was funny because I was a card carrying alcoholic member of this club. We went back there a couple of times.
In the small town where I'm at in Chickasha, we have, and there's a lot like this in Tulsa too, but Prohibition Tunnels. And they go to, I've actually done like tours at the Prohibition Tunnels, and they've got these tunnels that lead into these really fancy houses of all the doctors and the lawyers back in Prohibition, and they would run on these little bitty carts, these wooden carts. They'd run them through these tunnels, run the liquor through the tunnels so they could still have their parties and drink and all that stuff. But Tulsa has really just blossomed and bloomed in the arts big time.
Nice.
It's, in fact, my husband and I are going to go up there for like a mini little vacation. I know that sounds funny, go to Tulsa, Oklahoma, but they have an amazing arts district. And then they're doing this thing called the Greenwood Project. And you need to do yourself a favor and check that out. It's called the Greenwood Project. And it's about the Tulsa race riots and the massacre. And that's really just impressive, amazing stuff. I mean, seriously, guys. So I'm really proud of Tulsa and what they're doing with
Cool.
the arts district. So
Thank you. Okay, so I think we're back on Monday with Lou Jones from Boston. We're going to talk about his work at the Olympics over the years. So we'll see you then. Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
John.
Don.
Be well.
Everyone.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Maybe.